Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome to this session of our Islam Study Circle. There is a delay of about a minute or so because our software was not working and it still is not working. So, all those who are hearing me at this time may be informed that this session will only take place on Facebook Live, and as soon as the software is set right, we will inshallah revert to that. So, starting off with our first segment. The first segment relates to a verse of the Quran, as we generally do, and this time the verses that we're going to study here are actually the whole 6 verses of Surah Fatiha. So the words are, as you all know, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Gratitude is only for God, the Lord of the worlds, the most gracious, the ever merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. Lord, it is only you whom we worship, and it is only your help that we seek. Bless us with the guidance of the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, not of those who have earned your wrath, nor of those who have gone astray. Viewers, we read this surah almost every day when we offer our prayers, and this is something which recurs in every rak'ah of the prayer, and in fact such is its importance that the Prophet has actually in one of his narratives has said that these verses are actually a summary of the whole Quran. It's like saying that the Surah Fatiha is something which has all the basic teachings which the Quran wants to give us. And we also know that this is the opening verse or the opening surah of the Quran, and not only is it the opening surah of the Quran, it is also the opening surah of the first chapter of the Quran. We also know that this is perhaps the greatest prayer that a person can offer to the Almighty, because it's a prayer of guidance. It's a prayer in which each one of us seeks the Almighty's guidance and His teachings regarding our passage in our ordinary lives. It also needs to be understood that such is the nature of this prayer that we seem to find its similar, I would say, cognates in the previous scriptures as well. Thus, for example, we do find the Lord's Prayer in the Bible, in the Gospel of Matthew, which is so beautifully portrayed, and it's such a beautiful prayer that its similarity is so evident with Surah Fatiha that one can clearly see this analogy and this comparison. And similar is the case with a prayer found in the Old Testament and the Psalms. So such is the nature of this prayer of Surah Fatiha that its topics have existed earlier on in the earlier scriptures, and it does seem to me that as the prayer was part of the Sharia of all the prophets of God, perhaps this surah was also made part of the prayers which were offered in previous times before the Prophet, and it actually was derived from these scriptures with different words but having the same powerful meanings as we can see today. Viewers, also important is the fact that the group of scholars who say, and they have a lot of weight in their saying, that this actually is the first surah of the Quran. It was the first revelatory surah of the Quran. Generally, the first surah which is regarded to have been revealed is Surah Iqra, or the first 5 verses of Surah Iqra, which start off by the words Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq. However, if we study this verse, these verses and this surah, we'll find out that this perhaps is the only surah of the Quran which does not have a specific background vis-a-vis the connotation in which the Prophet's whole ministry, his whole preaching endeavor is reflected, as is the case with other surahs. And it is right at the start of the Prophet's mission, and what a befitting start, in which the previous people of the book, which were called the Jews and the Christians, they had lost the guidance, this divine guidance, and either they had been guilty of some interpolations, or the translations only existed, and because of the extreme nature of some of these interpretations, they had lost the true light of divine guidance, in spite of the fact that the Old and the New Testaments did exist earlier on, of course, in the time of the Prophet as well, in the form of revealed scriptures and revealed guidance from the Almighty. However, as has been discussed various times here in these study sessions, that this is something which has happened, that the original language of the previous scriptures have not been preserved. So it is here at this juncture that a person of the stature of the Prophet is requesting this, that oh God, guide us to the straight path, and not of those of the two previous nations who have gone astray. And of course, referring to the Jews and Christians of the times of the Prophet Muhammad. And it is here that he is requesting that the biggest thing which the Almighty can give us, or the biggest blessing that He can give us, is this blessing of guidance. And hence, if this can be achieved and this can be received, then something can really be salvaged vis-a-vis one's own future and one's own success in future. Just a look at these words. They start off with this acknowledgement of immense gratitude that we all owe to the Almighty, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, which of course tells us, or which drenches us with these blessings of the Almighty. It's a natural outburst of anyone who has heard or who has experienced the favors of the Almighty, and then he is absolutely instinctively he goes on and utters these words, that gratitude be to the Almighty, who is the sole Lord of all the creation. He has blessed us with so many things that we just cannot acknowledge all of them. So all that we can say is that God, we acknowledge, or God, we express that you have been very, very kind and compassionate to us. And then you see, the prayer starts off with the next words, and it says Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, which of course means that the Almighty is someone who is very gracious, who is very kind and compassionate. And because He's kind and compassionate, so therefore we do expect our link with the Almighty, that He will be someone who will always forgive and overlook our faults, and not only just overlook our faults for once or twice, but He will overlook our faults whenever we do them. So the two names of the Prophet have this distinction. Ar-Rahman has this enthusiasm and this vigor. It's regarding the forgiveness. As far as Rahim is concerned, it has that continuity in it, that it's not just on a few occasions that His forgiveness is there for us, but it's perpetually for us. So Rahim actually signals or signifies that perpetuation, and Rahman signifies the fact that the Almighty is always ready to forgive, and His nature of forgiveness is not for a couple of times, but as the word Rahim says, it's perpetual, it's abiding, it's forever. Whenever a person turns to Him, He is someone who also acknowledges and turns with favor and compassion to that person. And Maliki Yawmiddin, of course, is something which tells us that He is the master of the Day of Judgment, and on that day, perfect justice, we do not have this perfect justice in our world today, in these times, because of the fact that these times this world is made of imperfections, and it has been left to a lot of things have been left to our own will and discretion, in which we have been given the choice to do right and wrong, and therefore this right and wrong is at times something which is not always something which gives us this proper justice or perfect justice, in spite of the fact that we may have a lot of competent judges and people who are competent in their decisions, but still we might not have that justice as far as courts are concerned. And other than that, normal justice, in which a person would expect that he should be rewarded for all the good that he has done, and of course, if he's someone who is punished, then he is someone who deserves it. But it does not always happen like this in this world. At times, people who do bad, they end up at the top of the society, and the reverse is also true. So we need a day of justice, and that is what the Almighty is going to tells us, that He is going to be there. And we actually acknowledge this from our own selves, and we say that you are the master of the Day of Judgment. And because you are the master of the day of judgment, and because you are God, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. We only pray to you, we only worship you, and we only seek your help. And this is, dear participants, a very, very strong verse of the Quran. It's an extremely inspiring and motivational verse as well, because it tells us that the greatest support that we have is that of the Almighty. We worship Him alone. He is our sole God. There is no deity except Him. He is the only God. Because of the fact He's the only God and He has created us, we owe this worship to Him only. And this is basically, this worship is our symbolic attachment to the Almighty, the way that we can do it. Therefore, prayer and the fast and the Hajj and the other rituals, they are symbolic expressions which relate us to the Almighty. At times, this is something which takes place in various forms, and at times it takes place jointly. And then Iyyaka nasta'in is something which is so it comes out of our inner soul so spontaneously that we seek only His help. We do not go to any other person, to any other deity, to any other peer, or to any other person who might be an intermediary between us and God. We just go to Him, and we have a direct connection with God. And this direct connection, dear viewers, is something which really comforts us, because when we are told that we can just talk to God any time, at any place, whenever we want to, He can speak to us, we can pray to Him, we can ask for His help. This is a big support for us. And we do know from the history of the Prophet that whenever the Prophet Muhammad would be someone who would bog down, or who feel depressed or feel low, he would just get up and offer 2 rakats of prayer and ask the Almighty's help. So this is one of the ways in which the help of the Almighty is invoked, that you offer 2 rakats of namaz, of your prayer, and then you seek the Almighty's help. And of course, the biggest way to do so, as we have been told in the scriptures, is that if you are able to get up at night before dawn, which is of course the Tahajjud prayer, that is the best time to seek the Almighty's help, because it is at this time that He is the most attentive to our prayers. And then comes the topmost pleading that a human soul who needs this nourishment can say, and that the words are Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. God, guide us to the straight path. And the way these words are mentioned in Arabic, some technical details which I'm skipping, it not only tells us that guide us to the straight path, but also keep us steadfast on the straight path. And this is something that is such a beautiful prayer, such a spontaneous prayer. It comes out of our hearts, and it is basically the biggest prayer that we can ask for, because everything else is secondary to guidance, because man is not, or human beings are not mere physical existences. They have the spiritual aspect as well, and for their spiritual aspect they need this guidance from the Almighty, which nourishes their soul. And then this guidance is actually elaborated upon by telling the Almighty that guide us to the straight path, not the path of those who incurred your wrath, and not of those who had gone astray. Of course, referring to the Jews and Christians of the times of the Prophet. And this distinction has to be made very clearly, because this is actually addressing those Jews and Christians who had really gone astray in the times of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and they were, in spite of being recipients of divine guidance, they had somehow gone to extremes, or they had lost it. And it was a fresh guidance. It's a prayer of fresh guidance which is needed thereby. Because this surah is something which has so many deep meanings that we can go on and discuss its meanings. But I would suggest that whenever you have time, do reflect on these verses. They drench our souls. They really are able to heal a lot of things that we have in our mind. They give us this comfort, this mental solace when we speak to God and say that, God, we thank you for what you have done. We ask for forgiveness. We acknowledge that you shall provide us justice on the day of judgment. It is only you we worship. It is only you that we seek help. Please guide us to the straight path. And this straight path should not be the path of those who have gone astray or who have incurred your wrath. And when these words come out of our mouths and from our tongues, we can simply see how effective they are, and they reflect back on our own soul and our own minds. So with these few words, let's now go on to the next part of our study of our study circle, and this is the hadith of the day. This hadith, viewers, have been taken from the Al-Jami al-Sahih of Imam Bukhari, and it has been reported by Umar ibn Abi Salama, who says, يقول كنت غلاما في حجر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وكانت يدي تتيش في الصحفة فقال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يا غلام سم الله وكل يمينك وكل مما يليك فما زالت تلك نعمتي بعد. So Umar ibn Abi Salama says that I was an infant and was being brought up under the supervision of God's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When while eating, my hand would circulate all over the plate. So he was just eating from everywhere in the plate and sort of making a mess out of it. So when God's messenger saw this, he remarked, young man, eat after taking God's name with the right hand from the part of the plate near you. Consequently, after this, I would eat in this manner. So Umar ibn Abi Salama is actually narrating a very beautiful incident which took place. He was eating in front of the Prophet. He was someone who had been brought up under the guidance and supervision of the Prophet. And the Prophet gave him this etiquette of eating, that always eat for something which is in front of you, and do not circulate your hand all over the plate. Start eating from the part of the plate which is right before you, and also eat with God's name. So it's basically three pieces of advice that the Prophet has proffered. Number one, eat after taking God's name. So it's like saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, or some of the prayers which the Prophet has taught. Alhamdulillahi allazi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alna minal muslimin. For example, this is one of the prayers which the Prophet Muhammad has taught when we start, or we at times we remember that we are eating, and then even if we don't remember that we have started off with Bismillah, if we utter this prayer right after our eating, when we say Alhamdulillah allazi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alna minal muslimin, that we offer our gratitude to the Almighty who has fed us, who has made us drink, and He has also made us amongst Muslims, those who submit to Him. So it's like acknowledging His favor. We start our food by saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and then with the right hand. And the significance of the right hand is that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course, has bidden us to do so at a number of places. But if we relate his advice to what the Quran has said, we will understand why it has been stressed that we should use the right hand. Of course, this is addressing people who are naturally right-handed. So people who are naturally right-handed are urged to use their right hand, because the Quran tells us that those in the hereafter who would succeed, they will be given their account of the register of account in their right hands, signifying the fact that they are the ones who are going to go to paradise. So it's like reminding ourselves each day that let us be ones who are those who receive their accounts in their right hands and hence are admitted into paradise. So in order to make this reminder a continuous thing, we are told to eat by the right hand. Of course, people who are naturally left-handed, they can continue with their left-handed endeavors, but this is specifically for the right-handed. For the left-handed, their left hand is their real hand, and so there is an exception to that. And but the reason that we've been asked, as I said, to use the right hand is because people in the hereafter who succeed are the ones who will receive their account in their right hands and hence will be sent to paradise. And then the third etiquette which the Prophet has told us is that if you eat, then don't eat from all over the plate. Eat from the part of the plate which is nearest to you. Of course, this is a very appropriate guidance, that it does not look nice when a person is circling about or his plate. It should eat with something which is right in front of him. So these are the words of the Prophet. And remember, the Prophet Muhammad has guided us in all these affairs when in our undertakings, because of the fact that there are certain things which are part of his established sunnah. So one of the things which are part of his established sunnah is that you have to use the right hand in all our endeavors, and this is an established sunnah of the Prophet, also narrated in this narrative of the Prophet, as has been reported here. But other than that, it is an established practice of the prophets, of the Prophet of God. Now, let us move on to the third part of our study circle, viewers, and this is the Bible verse of the day. In fact, these are four verses which I have taken from the Gospel of Matthew. The words, I've given this title to it, that words will count. So the words are, "You offspring of snakes, how are you, being evil, able to say good things? Because out of the heart's store come the words of the mouth. The good man out of his good store gives good things, and the evil man out of his evil store gives evil things. And I say to you that in the day when they are judged, men will have to give an account of every foolish word they have said. For by your words will your righteousness be seen, and by your words you will be judged." Such a powerful saying and such a potent advice which the Prophet Jesus has given us. And the last few lines actually sum up what has been said to us here, and that is, "For your words will your righteousness be judged, and by your words you will be judged." So if a person is to be judged in the hereafter for the actions that we have been doing, one of the actions that we do is we utter something. Something comes out of our mouth, and it could be good, it could be bad. And as it has been said earlier on, that whatever has been stored in the heart comes out of the mouth. And if whatever is stored is evil, then evil will come out of the mouth. And whatever is stored is good, then good will come out of the mouth. So we have to be people, we have to be individuals who must always think before we speak. Because as we know that the wound which is caused by the tongue is much deeper by the wound which is caused by the sword. Whatever we say has a lasting effect on the person who hears us. Whatever we say can damage our relationship with our near ones. And whatever we say can actually build that relationship forever. So words are very powerful. Words are something which can make and break relationships. They can ruin relationships. They can cement relationships. So if we utter things which we are actually have already thought out before, we will realize that we are much more careful in our utterances. And as we have been already discussing this a number of times, that we must delay our reaction. One of the biggest things which makes us impetuous is that we just do not understand that as soon as we hear someone speak, we react immediately. We react immediately, and the words which then come out of our mouth are not ones that we later, when we reflect on them later, that we can feel proud of. Often we get embarrassed. Often we realize our mistake, and often we feel sorry and we wish that had we delayed our reaction, had we thought about what we were about to speak, we would have been much more prudent. We would have been much more wise. So this wisdom, dear viewers, this prudence, this sagacity comes with this delaying in reaction. We have to contemplate that each and every word will be perceived by our listeners, and that perception is also important. So it's not always the choice of words which is important. It is also the thing which we need to add to this choice of words is that how these words will be perceived by the other person. You might be correct in our stance, but the perception which the other person might take out of these words might be different from what we intend to imply. So this choice of words has to be also viewed in line with the perception which the particular person might understand from what we say. Viewers, now we come to the last part of our, final part of our study session, and which is the discussion topic of the day. And the topic that is discussed here today, or will be discussed here today, is what exactly is the secret to inner peace? What exactly is the secret to inner peace? So we often get this mental block when we realize that we are actually doing a lot of bad things in our life. We don't have that peace of mind. We don't have that comfort of mind. In spite of being blessed with a lot of things, the one single thing which still eludes us is that peace of mind, is that solace, is that mental comfort. And that elusive mental comfort is something which we often strive for, and oftentimes we do not achieve it because our efforts are sometimes in the wrong direction. So here are some tips that might help us in reaching out to other people, and of course in making ourselves more contributing individuals, and also making ourselves individuals to whom bothers and worries might not bother as much as they generally do if we adopt this strategy. So it's basically a three-pronged strategy that I would suggest. The first of this is that we must always keep count of our blessings. The more we keep count of our blessings, the less depressed we will become, because of the fact that if we acknowledge the fact and if we view how other people are living in circumstances at times which are below the poverty line, in which they don't have the basic necessities of life, food, water, shelter, education, health, these facilities are missing for so many people in this world. And then we have all sorts of incidents which happen in their lives. People die young, people they give birth to those who are handicapped, and handicapped children are born. Children are at times hijacked and they are taken away. And there's so many miseries in life. People have debilitating diseases, and then have all sorts of financial difficulties. So all these things tend to make us very, very bogged down individuals. They tend to depress us. It is here that we need to understand that come what may, whatever affliction that we might be suffering from, the blessings of the Almighty easily outnumber our afflictions. Our eyes, our eyesight, our faculty of hearing, our faculty of speech, our normal limbs, the way we can live in a society as free individuals and express ourselves freely. These are some of the gifts that the Almighty has given us. We get up in the morning, we have a breath of fresh air, we know that we are still alive, we know that we do not have any terminal disease, we can still walk about and make our efforts and of course pray for a new future. It's all in our hands. There's so much to be thankful about. So this is the first strategy of getting rid of this mental discomfort, that always keep a good count of your blessings, and especially whenever you feel that you are being bogged down or depression is getting the better of you, start counting your blessings. The second thing which I would like to suggest here is that, or the second tip here is that we must have a mission in life. Because if we have a mission in life, we'll be focused towards that mission. And if we are focused towards that mission, then we will generally tend to be more attentive to the needs of that mission, and we will seldom be vacant. And we know that a vacant mind is the devil's playground, and all sorts of things then work up there. So if we can direct ourselves towards our mission, if we can have a mission in life, if we can have a purpose in life and then concentrate on that purpose, this will again reduce that time, that idle time, or the time in which a person feels useless, and that ultimately leads to a low feeling and depression. So the second thing which keeps us going and keeps us pumping is that we should have a mission in life, and we should work all out to achieve that mission. And the third suggestion in this regard is that we must reach out to people as best as we can in order to help them. It's not just through money that we can help people. We can simply call people, we can send them emails, we can call them, we can email them, and do it continuously, because mankind is in distress. And this distress will not go away with just one phone call or maybe just one instance of sending an email. No, it has to be a persistent thing in which we follow up with people who are in distress. And we must start off with people who are near us, people who are our relatives, who are our friends, because they need our help the most. We must reach out to them and as best as we can relieve their worries and talk to them, and also make them realize that this world is a life of test. It's a world of tests. We have been put through these tests, and we have to pass this test. And the only way that we can pass through this test is that we have to be thankful to our Creator for what we have, and be patient for what we don't have, because we shall be compensated for what we don't have. And we shall, if we express this gratitude, then we will be given more in this world as well. So it's a three-pronged strategy. Just to recap, the first is that we must keep count of our blessings. So this can be termed as gratitude therapy. The second is that we must have a mission in life. So this can be termed as mission therapy. And the third thing is that we must look after people as much as we can, and this can be termed as the reaching out therapy. So if these three therapies combine, we can see that we might be able to actually get rid of that feeling of this discomfort and worry. The worries might not go away, but they will stop bothering us. And in spite of the worries, which of course at times come in packages and they at times come to stay and at times come continuously, they will not bother us, because once we realize that worries and these things are part of our life because they are the trial of the Almighty, then what will happen is that this three-pronged strategy will keep us engaged and will make us contributing individuals. Instead of brooding and complaining, we will be always looking to do something for the people that we live in, the society that we live in, and for our own selves as well. So viewers, with these words we come to an end to our study session, and inshallah hope to see you next week again. Once again, sorry that this session could not be relayed on our software because something was not working. Hope that it will be set right during the week. Until then, it is Khuda Hafiz.